Imagine complete darkness. The kind of darkness so deep that your eyes could never adjust to it. There's not even a whisper of light, just the constant burble of nearby water, the dank smell of wet limestone, and the breezing breaths of the 12 other souls huddled with you in the dark. That's what it was like for the Wild Boars, a Thai soccer team trapped deep into Tam Luang Cave when a monsoon unexpectedly struck the area. There's a good chance you've heard of the Wild Boars and their rescue. The soccer team's 18 days stuck in this pitch dark made international news. What you probably haven't heard, however, is one little technique that may have saved their lives during those 2.5 weeks of darkness and isolation. Breathwork. Breathwork is one of the simplest and most powerful tools a person has for decreasing stress and increasing health, both mental and physical. The best part? It's free, virtually always available, and as quick as you need it to be. So if you've ever wondered how you could build healthy pick-me-ups into your day, or how to come down when you're so stressed you could pop, Breathwork may be the answer. If you're ready to learn how to access Breathwork and its array of benefits, like increased focus, better sleep, and reduced stress, stay tuned, my friends! The research shows that breathing techniques can help with all that, and so much more. As always, we're bringing you today's science-backed tips with a side of storytelling. In today's episode, discover how careful breathwork may have saved the young lives of that Wild Boar soccer team. And join us for an interview with author and breath coach Margaret Hentschel as she walks us through some tried and true techniques to breathing your way to a healthier life. The Wild Boar soccer team was made of 12 boys between the ages of 11 and 17. And their 25-year-old coach, Ekapan Kanthawang. The Tam Luang Cave was one of their favorite places to explore. So one Saturday after practice, the team raced on their bikes to spend some time romping about the tunnels. The story of what happened next swept over a panicked world anxious for the lives of the young soccer team. Every monsoon season, most, if not all of the cave would become completely submerged in water. During this time, officials would close it off to the public. This Saturday, however, the cave's yawning mouth was still open for anyone to enjoy. The entire team parked their bikes and began to explore its passages, not a one of them aware that a flash flood was brooding in the sky. As they climbed about the mountain's bowels, the heavens tore open, and a deluge ensued. Not far from the cave, the Sompeng Jai family anxiously awaited their son's return. Among the oldest of the Wild Boar team, Pirapat Knight Sompeng Jai had turned 17 that very day, and his family was ready to greet him in their rural village with a vibrant yellow SpongeBob cake and a colorful array of gifts. However, as time snaked by and rain continued to pound away at the ground, the family began to worry. It was getting late. Where was their son? The Sompeng Jai family weren't the only ones concerned for their missing children. When the boys failed to return, parents suspected trouble at the cave, which had a hazardous reputation in times of heavy rain. Sure enough, the parents found their children's bags and bikes waiting near the cave entrance, which was now choked with thousands of gallons of muddy water. If the boys hadn't already drowned, then they were completely trapped in a cold, wet cave. No light, and just a small amount of food intended for what was supposed to be a brief cave visit. The coming week was a nightmare for Thailand. There was no protocol for extracting living persons from a submerged cave. Thai Navy SEALs, the national police, and local volunteers scrambled for solutions. Where could the team have ended up in over 6 miles of cave channels? If they found them, how on earth could they move them through tunnels of murky water that would be hazardous even to the most experienced cave divers? And the big question, if they could locate them, would they be extracting boys or bodies? That final question loomed larger and larger with each passing day. If the team was alive, each sunset represented another day they'd suffered without significant food or any light. To make matters worse, the rain kept coming. While Thai officials were flying in some of the world's top cave divers, other teams worked frantically to start pumping water out of Tam Luang's tunnels. They couldn't hope to empty the cave, but if those 13 people were still alive inside, they faced a very real possibility of losing their air pocket to the hundreds of thousands of liters of water still rushing into the mountain. A day passed, then 2 days, then an excruciating week. Divers were exploring the tunnels, teams were drilling at the mountainside, and the entire world was watching with bated breath. What child could survive this? While the activity outside the cave reached fever pitch, the wild boars were immersed in eerie stillness. Though no one knew it yet, the team had perched in one of the few places in the cave that was still above water. At least, it was for now. Coach Kanthawang was presented with a challenge no other coach had seen the likes of. Sure, he knew how to direct a team around a soccer field, but could he still lead his band of lost boys in these hopeless conditions? Think about it. You're the only adult in a life-or-death situation. Hunger is gnawing at your stomach like a starved rat. And though you can't see the people in your care, you know they're suffering like you are. You can't identify their injuries. You can't promise that anyone will ever find you. You know the question on everyone's mind. Is this where we will all slowly die? Is anyone even looking for us? Coach Kanthawang had his work cut out for him. Luckily for the kids, he wasn't just a soccer fan. Kanthawang was a former Buddhist monk, and he had a strong idea how his team could pass the time. In the dripping darkness, he taught them meditation techniques. Under his direction, the children laid still, conserving their strength and practicing breathing techniques to calm their bodies and their minds. Finally, on day 9, the team saw light. The divers had found them. The crews outside the cave immediately arranged for food and medical treatment to be delivered to the players, and members of the Thai Navy SEALs would remain with them until they were finally delivered from the cave. But everyone involved was still facing that major question. How could they get the boys out? There were no promising options. The boys weren't qualified to scuba themselves out. With such a hazardous diving situation and no previous training, they would probably perish if asked to swim on their own. Worse still, more monsoons were approaching. It wouldn't be long until the cave was entirely submerged. One of the divers had a contact in Australia, an anesthetist by the name of Dr. Richard Harris. He asked Dr. Harris if it was possible to anesthetize the boys, who could then be fitted with oxygen masks and delivered from the cave. Dr. Harris replied with a firm no. There were too many risks. But the rains kept coming. The wild boars had been underground for about 2 weeks now, having oxygen tanks and other supplies regularly delivered to keep them alive. The dams, the pumps, the hand bailing, none of it would matter when the rains were strong enough. The anesthesia plan became the only option. We're not done sharing the story of the wild boar team and how Breathwork played a pivotal role in their rescue. And as promised, we're going to help you discover ways to use the power of breath in your own life. But first, we wanted to take a moment to make a request. If you get any value from this podcast, would you help us with our goal to spread it? If you like what you hear, share it. Social media, word of mouth, a text to your crazy Aunt Susan, everything is a step towards a healthier world. Thanks, from me to you, for helping spread the wellness. Back to the wild boars. With a great deal of reluctance, authorities authorized the anesthetic plan. A getaway vehicle was arranged for the divers and Dr. Harris should their plan prove fatal and the community turn on them. Each diver was given thorough training on how to administer the drugs. Then, one by one, the divers were sent to retrieve the wild boars. Each swimmer carried wetsuits, masks, and other diving supplies to protect their precious cargo back through the cave system, as well as 2 doses of anesthesia. The drugs would begin to wear off midway through the return trip, and the divers would have to administer another dose to keep their young passenger from waking. To ensure each unconscious team member could be squeezed through some of the tighter areas, their hands were tied behind their backs. When looking back at that day, the cave divers recalled the awful feeling of binding a child's wrists behind him, drugging him, and then submerging him in water, entirely unsure if he'd resurface alive. 3 long hours after the first child was anesthetized, his diver returned. This boy, this precious cargo, was alive. It took 3 days and many scares before all 13 wild boars were extracted. Every last one survived. Let's sit with that for a second. Not one mother or father had to face a life without their son. Not one sister or brother would have to ask why their sibling never came back. And Piripat Knight Sompangjai? His birthday celebration may have been 18 days late, but he still got a slice of that SpongeBob cake. However, there was one terrible loss. During the 18-day ordeal, Navy diver Saman Gunan lost consciousness on his way back from delivering oxygen tanks to the soccer team. He did not survive. You see, it wasn't just food and water that the wild boars desperately needed. With each passing day, oxygen levels in their air pocket were dropping. Healthy levels of oxygen hover around 21%. At their most desperate point, the team was breathing air that only contained 15%, creating an extremely dangerous situation that could send the team into hypoxia, a potentially deadly condition when the body's cells no longer have access to enough oxygen to function. Hypoxia could then turn into asphyxiation, suffocating to death. It was lack of oxygen that took Saman Gunan's life. So how did the soccer team survive? Though it's impossible to say with complete certainty, several professionals have suggested it was Coach Kanthawong's breathing exercises. Stanford University meditation expert Leah Weiss shared this opinion to CNBC. Quote, "For Buddhists, meditation is a go-to when distressed or in danger. Cognitive resources that would otherwise be hijacked by the threat can be accessed once again, meaning that problem-solving capacities increase. Given that insufficient air and food was a major issue for the trapped boys, meditation is actually a very practical response to both of these concerns." End quote. 15% oxygen is considered the minimum level for sustaining life. Ultimately, the wild boars' slowed breathing and meditative state may have saved them from asphyxiation. It may also explain how calm the boys appear in the footage of their time inside the cave, and their composure when they were finally delivered to the light of day. In other words, breathwork may have saved their lives and their minds. What can breathwork do for you? Are there any proverbial caves in your life that feel like they're getting low on oxygen? A difficult relationship, perhaps, or a stressful project at work? There are countless issues one can encounter that can feel just a bit like that cave. Isolating, dark, and no promise of a happy ending. But just as those wild boars used breathwork to hold out for happier days, so can you. Stay tuned. We're going to explore the benefits of breathwork and walk you through some tried and true techniques for breathing your way into a healthier life. Improved mood, reduced stress, increased mental health. These benefits have all been discovered through various studies involving breathwork. But how does it work? Breathing techniques reduce heart rate and the amount of oxygen in the blood, which activates our parasympathetic nervous system. In plain English, breathwork switches on the part of our nervous system in charge of rest and relaxation. When our nervous system is out of whack, we can experience all kinds of unpleasantness, such as depression, digestive issues, and fatigue. Breathwork is an accessible way to reset our system, almost like restarting a cell phone when it begins to act up. Research even shows that breathwork can synchronize our brainwaves, helping all those signals in our noggin start working together. The result? Alertness and invigoration. All this from a few rounds of simple breathing techniques. Who could say no to that? To learn more about how to apply this in your own life, we're going to turn to breathwork instructor Margaret Hentschel, author of Breathe Easy, Transforming Stress with Breathwork. Together, we'll explore a bit more on the importance of breathing techniques and walk through a few techniques you can try today. So, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Maggie Henschel. I published my book under Margaret, which is my official name, which I've never gone by, but I thought if I'm going to publish a book, I should have it say Margaret. My mom would be happy. In my past, for about 20 years, I was a market research executive working with corporate America. And I loved my job. It was really interesting, but I felt like all my life that I was meant to do something more in the healing arts. I went to school and I thought I was going to do medicine. I was a biology major at first, and then I realized that Western medicine was not my passion. And I ended up getting a degree in comparative religion, which is crazy, not from more from a spiritual standpoint. And I really focused on Eastern philosophies because those were what really fascinated me versus Western. And that's where I just started to delve into all things mind-body medicine, mind-body healing, and studied everything from Ayurvedic medicine to Reiki, Tai Chi, acupuncture, Eastern medicine. That was really what I focused on when I was studying. So when I wrote papers and things like that. So that was my passion. But then I graduated and I was like, I have to get a job. And that led me into corporate America. And it took me away from a lot of those passions. But like I said, I was an executive market research, brand and advertising, and it was a phenomenal career. I enjoyed it. And at the end of my career, I worked overseas. I lived in Geneva, Switzerland for 2 years, and then Shanghai, China for 2 years.
Wow.
And so I got to really get an even bigger kind of understanding of the world and philosophies and things like that. But when I finished my contract in China, I just said, I feel like I need to do something different. I went to Thailand and I stayed at a wellness retreat for about a month. And I was reintroduced into all those things that I was so passionate about.
Right.
Meditation. Obviously, we did a lot of physical activities, massages, everything that was just wonderful about that. And that was where I started to be reintroduced into breathwork, breathing techniques. At the wellness retreat, they had an ice bath. I don't know if you've ever
Ooh.
been in an ice bath, but definitely takes learning how to control your breathing in order to kind of handle that.
Huh. That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. When I was back in the States, I ended up doing a lot of Pilates. And then I said, oh, I love this Pilates. And this is such a mind-body connection element that I ended up getting trained in Pilates. So now really what I do with my life is I'm a Pilates instructor. And like I said, I published this breathing book.
Okay. It sounds like you have a very well-rounded background to help you approach this.
It's a stressful world, and
Mhm.
living is hard sometimes, and people need healing and people need tools to help them either stay stressed, to find relief from stress, or to help heal their soul, or to heal their body. And so that's why all the, alternative ways of anything, tools out there.
Mhm.
I wanted to be able to help share that with people. People
Okay.
who don't know or didn't have the same interest, who never really even thought about breathing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
And
so
breath work it's accessible. It's
it
super
is.
accessible. It's,
Yes.
everybody can do it. And it doesn't take a lot of learning. It does take a little bit of mindfulness.
Mhm.
And it's powerful. It's effective. It's effective in so many different ways for whatever you're using it for. Whether
Right.
you need to get more energy, whether you need to calm yourself down, whether you need to release stress.
Mhm.
You can use breath work for, physical endurance, for being able to handle an ice bath. There's just it's just so accessible, and I think more people should just know about it and think about it and try to incorporate it in their lives, if they think they need it.
Right. And I think one of the most important points, at least in Western society, is that it is accessible. It's free. You can do it fairly quickly, or you can do it for hours, you know. So it just takes a little learning and practice. I love that.
Right.
All right. Tell us a bit about the effect, like the physiological effect of mindful, intentional breathing.
Sure. I mean, I touched a little bit on it,
Hmm.
but we talked a little bit about, well, we know that deep breathing can affect the nervous system, right? So if you're taking really big, deep breaths and long exhales, etc., that really it impacts the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system that we kind of call digest and rest, or rest and digest, right? It's calming to the nervous system. It brings you back to a state of peace. So in stressful situations, you can use deep breaths to impact that parasympathetic nervous system. Contrary to that, like if we were going to be, let's say, doing quick, fast breaths, that impacts the fight or flight system or the sympathetic nervous system. So that can get you either, more energized. It can get you ready to act quicker, faster. Like it fight or flight. It kind of says it all.
Hmm.
So breathing can impact the nervous system. So if we can do breathing exercises, you can immediately impact your state of mind, your emotions. Physically, you can calm yourself down. And like I said, you could also use more intense breathing exercises to give yourself more energy, to find a way to learn better, those sorts of things.
Okay. That is really cool because usually when I think of breathing exercises, I think of calming down, and maybe that's what I need most. But the fact that you can flip it to really suit your needs in the moment. If you need more energy, maybe more alertness, you can also use breathing for that. So that's a good reminder. I'm glad that you brought that up.
For sure, for sure. And there's other things like nowadays you can kind of look up in science and stuff like breathing through your nose increases nitric oxide.
Hmm.
And nitric oxide basically it opens up your blood vessels to receive more oxygen. So that means it can bring more oxygen throughout your body. And that actually has a huge impact on your immune system, your blood circulation, and your nervous system. So again, that's, which you don't even really think about. Suffer from allergies. So breathing in and out of my nose all the time is can be a difficult thing. But really, we aren't taught this, but ideally we should be breathing in and out through our nose. The
Hmm.
nose is for breathing, the mouth is for eating, right? So, even when I was looking into this, I didn't realize that I didn't know that as much until I started to learn about it.
Yeah.
And then it changes everything when you start to think about, like, okay, like let's just breathe in through my nose and out through my nose. You
Hmm.
know, it's better. You're bringing more moisture into your system. You're getting more oxygen into your system. Um, so just even thinking about breathing through your nose, could make a difference in your life. Could be healing to the body.
Yeah. Very good point. So you don't have to necessarily master specific techniques, just some good habits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear if you have any stories, whether they're personal or from clients, family members, about how strategic breathing has been a benefit to their life.
Yeah. I mean, I've so after I wrote the book, of course, I, told all my Pilates students, and many of
Yeah.
them did go out and get the book and supported me, and really felt like it actually made a difference in their lives. There's a couple of them that are teachers of young kids, and they
Mm.
started to actually introduce some breathing exercises in their classrooms. And one of them is square breathing, which we might, do that a little bit later. I don't know. And she said to me, yeah, she's like, oh my God, the kids just love this. And, one of my little girls came in and said, are we going to do the square? Are we going to do the square? And, you know, just to see how children react to a simple breathing exercise. has been really powerful. Another member of mine said, came in the other day and said, "Oh my God, Maggie, you saved my life." She's like, I was my son and his 4-year-old son is visiting, and he was on the edge of a breakdown, like a really bad meltdown. And she's like, and I just pulled him aside and I said, "We're going to sit here and we're going to do some breathing exercises." And she said it just flipped the switch for him. He all of a sudden went from meltdown mode to being back to a calm, manageable state, which
Mm-hmm.
made a difference for him too, because no kid wants to be in a meltdown mode.
Right.
For me personally, I use some breathing techniques when I am, frustrated as a caregiver. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's been times where I just, feel like I want to ring my mom,
Yeah.
and I'll go step out of the room and I'll do, lion's breath. And all I have to do is a couple of these lion's breath, and I'll have a state of calmness come over me. Then I can go back in and deal with what I have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So definitely, those are the big ones. I've used breathing exercises to calm down before I've had my blood pressure taken.
Right.
Because you can use breath work to help with those types of things as well. So yeah, those are just a few. I have another client who suffers from panic attacks,
Mm.
and she's used some of the breathing techniques when she's felt like those attacks are going to start to come on.
Yeah.
And she said it's really helped her to stop an attack from happening. So
I
those are
believe
just,
that. Yeah.
yeah, some examples.
Okay, so here's the fun part. I would love it if you could walk us through a breathing exercise right now.
Okay, I can definitely do that. First, I just would want everybody, the listeners, to just take a moment to take, a big inhale, whatever way is comfortable for them. And then a nice big exhale, breathe out. Just get comfortable with your own breathing currently. We're going to do an exercise which is called square breathing. So I want you to try and take a big inhale through your nose. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath. Inhale. Hold your breath. Exhale. 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 Take a big inhale through your nose. I want you to extend your exhale for as long as you can now. Take another big inhale, breathing in positive energy. Exhale, blow out for as long as you can. One more big inhale through your nose, breathing in positive energy. Exhale, extend your breath for as long as you can. And you could continue that for as long as felt comfortable.
All
How do you
right.
feel, Phoebe?
I feel awesome. I feel like the coffee jitters have eased out a little bit. That was really wonderful. So it seems to me like the principle of that was to inhale, hold, exhale, hold for roughly the same amount of time, like a count of 4. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And that's super easy to remember.
Yeah, that's like one of the easiest ones. And I love to use it. I use it, when I teach center and balance classes in my Pilates classes. It just brings an extra element of calm. It brings a focus back to your breathing. Um, and it's a great one for stress relief. It's a great one if you need to just refocus, kind of, regroup yourself. It's a fabulous one to use with children because it's
Right.
so simple.
Yeah.
And it is very calming. There is another one that's called 4-7-8 breathing. And it's very similar, but it's more like you're inhaling for 4, and then you're holding your breath for 7, and then you're trying to exhale for that 8,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of moving in and out of that, but it's just different timing factors. We did that extended exhale, at the end. That's a really powerful one too. Helps
Mm-hmm.
us again, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting peace, reducing stress, those sorts of things. So just
Right.
focusing on, the length. Rhythmic breathing, super simple too. Just find the rhythm, your own rhythm that feels
Mm-hmm.
right for you. And you don't always have to add a breath hold in the middle. It could just be an inhale and an exhale. Um, so really simple tools. And then there's some other fun ones like I think I mentioned I use this one a lot. The dragon's breath. Dragon's breath is what, and that's one where you inhale through your nose, but when you're exhaling, you're actually doing a facial expression and you're kind of blowing out heavily. So you would inhale, and then you're supposed to stick your tongue out down towards your chin and then look up. So you
Okay.
inhale first, exhale, and you do that like 3 or 4 times. And I mean, that it's like amazing, like what that does. Like if you're really worked up or
Mm-hmm.
angry, or if you do that like 3 or 4 times, it's just like a whole different experience. Like you
Yeah.
feel like a whole different person. Maybe it's just because you're doing a crazy expression. Um,
Right.
you know, the yogis wouldn't say that. Each
Mm-hmm.
physical feature has, a purpose.
Right. All right. I'm going to try the dragon's breath and the square breath. And of course, go back to your book and look at the other ones. In fact, yeah, tell us about the book and where we can find you online.
Okay, the book, I've got it right here. Breathe Easy.
Ah.
Um, it's Breathe Easy, Transforming Stress with Breathwork. The author is me, Margaret Hentschel. You can find the book on Amazon. And so really, my recommendation would be you could put Breathe Easy. I think it's popping up pretty quickly in the search there. But also if you put Margaret Hentschel in the search, some of my other books will pop up too, if you wanted to take a look at those. I've published a couple coloring books.
That's cool.
I also did a workbook for Breathe Easy. It's a 30-day transformative workbook. So it has you journaling and doing breathing exercises every day and reflecting on certain things. So if you wanted to really take building breath work into your lifestyle, the workbook's a fabulous tool. And it's just a good thing for reflection in those elements too. So that's that. You could follow me on Instagram, Inspired Mind, Body, Spirit.
Ah, that was good times. Fun fact, I do voiceover work, and I actually met Margaret while searching for audiobooks I could narrate. So if you happen to get the audio version of Breathe Easy, you'll be treated to this sultry voice for about an hour and a half. The link to all of Margaret's publications can be found in this episode's description. There, you will also find a link to the sources I used to develop this episode. For some icing on the cake, I also included a link to walk you through my personal favorite breathing exercise, courtesy of Huberman Labs. Okay, folks, that is nearly it for us today. It's time for the Silver Liners Challenge. This challenge is designed to be a simple, actionable task to help you improve your wellness this week. Are you ready? Here's the challenge. Set aside 5 minutes and practice breath work. Surprise! If you want a little direction on what techniques to try, you can always use the breathwork book we discussed earlier, or simply hop on Google or YouTube and search breathwork tutorial. This should help you start a collection of breathing exercises that suit you well. In just a moment, we're going to move on to the cheesy joke of the week, but first, a little announcement. You may notice that today's episode has different artwork than usual. We are developing a rebrand for the show, and we're super excited about it. We feel it better reflects the wellness and good vibes we're aiming for, and we'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any. You can reach us via our website at www.pjvoiceover.com/SGH. All right, last but not least, the cheesy joke of the week. A Zen master visiting New York City goes up to a hot dog vendor and says, "Make me one with everything." The hot dog vendor fixes a hot dog and hands it to the Zen master, who pays with a $20 bill. The vendor puts the bill in the cash box and closes it. "Excuse me, but where's my change?" asks the Zen master. The vendor responds, "Change must come from within." Ching! Thanks, guys. It was a treat spending this time with you. This episode is dedicated to Saman Gunan, who gave his life contributing to the rescue of the wild boars.